Well, the Supreme Court this week heard oral arguments on two same-sex marriage cases, California's Proposition 8 and the constitutionality of the Defense of Marriage Act. But marriage for a lot of religious people is an institution designed by God, not by man. So what role does and should faith play in the marriage debate? Joining me now is Robert Taylor, author of A New Way to Be Human, 7 Spiritual Pathways to Becoming Fully Alive, and Ken Klukowski, Director of the Center for Religious Liberty at the Family Research Council. Welcome to you both.
Good to be here.
Thank you, Lauren. Great to be with you.
And Ken, I want to start with you only because I feel like you're further away, so I want to bring you into the argument first. Basically, you know, like I said, that religion, a lot of people feel like marriage is something designed by God, and then it should not be dictated by the federal government. So, but in this case, it is being debated by the Supreme Court justices. How much should religion weigh in on this?
Well, in terms of what the Supreme Court will do, it's not going to weigh in at all. Nor is it the federal government dictating marriage. In neither case is the federal government determining who can and cannot get married. The question in the DOMA case, the second case, is just merely for purposes of federal benefits, which are largely economic entitlement, like federal income tax breaks or Social Security purposes, just for purposes of federal programs where the Constitution does allow Congress to exercise power. This is just a definitional provision that defines a term in the federal code, just like there's federal definitions for the word property and all sorts of other things in federal law that are normally determined by the states.
Yeah, I mean, and Robert, why don't you just answer what he was
Yeah, you know, I think we're all waiting eagerly for the response of and the ruling of the Supreme Court on both of these cases. I think many of us bring our religious perspectives, whatever our tradition, to our views on marriage. And there is no uniformity of those religious perspectives. There are many Christians who believe that same-gender marriage is in fact a civil rights issue and is connected with spiritual concerns around issues of love and justice and the spiritual arc of inclusion of all people. And so I think that if Prop 8 is overturned, for instance, and the right to marry is expanded to include same-gender couples, religious organizations are going to continue to exercise the right that they've always had, which is to choose who it is that they wish to marry within their own religious ceremonies.
Do you really believe, though, that same-sex marriage becomes the law of the land, you know, in all 50 states? And I'm not sure if these two cases will actually do that. It sounds like the justices are going kind of a narrow definition here. Do you really believe that religious institutions will be protected legally if they choose not to?
Well, I have to believe that that's true. It's certainly the case now. I mean, no church is compelled or forced to, or synagogue or mosque is compelled to marry anybody who walks through their doors. Religious institutions have their own set of criteria because for them, we've got this anomaly. Marriage is a civil and legal contract in our society. And then we've got the overlays and the underlays of religion around it from a variety of traditions.
Ken, if you could answer Robert on that.
Well, yeah, actually, that's not true. In 1983, in Bob Jones University versus United States, Bob Jones did not allow black and white students to date each other, and the Supreme Court allowed the IRS to strip them of their 501c3 status, saying that national policy recognized that racial discrimination was unconstitutional. And so Bob Jones, a private institution, they were free to discriminate if they wanted, but the Supreme Court said that the government can strip away all of their tax benefits and the charitable deduction that people giving to them, all of those sorts of things. The reasoning in Bob Jones in 1983, the reasoning of that case is completely applicable if the Supreme Court would declare that there is a previously invisible right to gay marriage and polygamy of such a nature that the states can no longer vote on this issue and decide for themselves.
I do want to leave out the racial issues because there are a lot of people who don't equate homosexuality with a racial group, and that's another issue altogether. But I would want to bring up the issue of a father in Massachusetts who said he did not want his child being taught about same-sex relationships in his school. You've got the Methodist Church who was in a suit because they said they would not allow a lesbian couple to get married. Those are the kinds of issues we're talking about here. So in that sense, Do you think that there really is going to be provision for people, not just institutions, but people who are religious people who say, I don't want to acknowledge the same-sex unions because it's against my faith?
You know,
well, I'm sorry, go ahead,
I'm talking with Robert.
Lauren, I would suggest to you that I've not heard anyone who is part of the Freedom to Marry movement suggesting that there be any coercion of any religious institution, and I would be totally surprised to find people who actually take that position. That really serves to undermine the religious liberty aspects and the free exercise of religion that are part of our culture.
That's the problem, though, that I want to get at this, because you've got the situation with the Methodist Church and the camp meeting. You've got the situation where the photography couple said, I didn't want to photograph a lesbian wedding, and they've been sued for those, and they've lost those suits. So we see the handwriting on the wall that perhaps they will not be protected because they have not been.
Yeah, I think we're obviously going to have to see how that plays out, but I doubt that you're going to see people pushing for that one. I think that what's at the heart of this debate for many people is that if Proposition 8 is overturned in California, the right to enter into the civil contract of marriage is going to be expanded, obviously. And part of what happens with that is you actually start to, I mean, traditional heterosexual marriage at this point, as we know, is under severe stress in this country, with divorce rates hovering around 50%. Sure. What you're in fact going to be doing is, I believe, revitalizing the institution of marriage and really affirming some of its very conservative values and principles.
Okay, Ken, just answer Robert on that.
Well, the reason, actually, it comes back, the reason I'm raising race is because that is the strongest case for the other side. Their whole argument is built around the 1967 Supreme Court case, Loving v. Virginia, where the court said that a law saying a black woman could not marry a white man was unconstitutional. And they say because that is a fundamental right, so is the right to same-sex marriage. So they are the ones who have actually melded these two issues together at the Supreme Court. And there were briefs filed at the court in this case raising exactly the issue that I just discussed. So, I mean, this is on the front burner of this litigation. And for people who think this isn't the kind of thing anyone needs to be concerned about, look at the HHS mandate litigation, which everyone thought was unthinkable before Obamacare. And of course, I'm involved in that litigation as well. That is right up in the courts right now.
All right, I want to thank you both. You know, the Supreme Court is likely going to make a decision on these two cases, Proposition 8 and DOMA, in about June, I think. And we'll wait to hear what they have to say. I also want to give a little chat here from Cutie Lemon 7. She says religion will always have an influence on marriage, and these very profound words. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank you very much, Robert Taylor, Ken Klukowski. Thank you very much for being here. Lauren. We are not over this discussion, obviously.
And happy Easter.
And happy Easter to you as well. Thank you so much.
To both of you.
All righty.